Aurobindo is showing us not a very comfortable picture about a corner of our own life and a corner of the world. But it is better that we see it from Aurobindo's eyes and he takes us through it, rather than we learn by experience and learn by failure and progress through fall. So it is much better that he shows us all this and we can grow aware, rather than all this we have to learn through who knows how many lives and in what ways. So in that sense, also this picture is not to frighten us. On the contrary, it is to give us renewed strength, because within us, repeatedly Aurobindo has told us, within us dwells the infinite one whose every breath creates and destroys universes. So he dwells in us. So this is not to feel. In fact, fear attracts these entities because they feed on fear, they feed on desire, they feed on lust, they feed on anger, they feed on greed, they feed on every such obscure movement, jealousies, suspicion. They feed on all these things which are low and obscure because they are kingdoms of little life, and they feed and grow fat and we grow thin. So we should grow fat and make them grow thin. So this is this kind has to be just kept at its place. They will change when the transforming light touches base. Of course, they will try to create a little bit of restlessness and problems, some illnesses. Aurobindo says this in some of his letters, that when these things are thrown away from the thought, they in normal ordinary life they have occupied everything, including the thoughts of an average man. When you throw them from the thoughts, they take shelter in the vital. When you throw them from the vital, they take shelter in the body. They start causing illnesses. When you throw them from the body, they take shelter in the subconscious and come up again and again. Then in the environing consciousness. So this is the way they get eliminated. But it is the Lord who is taking us through this journey. So there is nothing to worry, nothing to fear. We go a little ahead because he tells us in great detail. Page 162, where he summarizes this kind of life. Often we hear about the ordinary, average human life, and all of us have in us a part which subscribes to this ordinary and average pitch. So this is not to divide humanity into two groups, but simply to know that there is in us an attraction to this kind of life. Now he has shown us the inner side of this story, what it is. And he is showing us what our lives was and will remain, so long as the spirit in us is not the Lord, so long as the soul in us is not free. So page 162, we will read the last, or from top we will read right from the top. Concealed in the subliminal secrecy. So these are hidden prompters of speech and act and feelings, he's already told us. Mid an obscure occult machinery. This machinery of life, world force, the cosmic energy, the cosmic engines is occult to us. We think. But thought enters us through the back door often, rather than coming from high. We think, we act, but we are pushed to act. We think, we feel, but we are made to feel. Now when we begin to become aware of this, then we naturally, the first thing is to become more conscious, because it's an occult machinery. Capture the mystic modes whose measured life transmits the messages of the cosmic force. So beautiful. Aurobindo uses the telegraphic language, Morse code, where people used to do tuck, 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 and it was translated in actual words. Interestingly, the same thing we do on the computer, that we just press some letters at random and we see on the screen a language coming up. So these beings act. They pull at the brain some nerve cells and it translates into our head as thought and all kinds of suggestions. Or they tug at the heartstrings and it translates itself into certain kinds of feelings and impulses. So Morse code transmits the messages of the cosmic force. A whisper falls into life's inner ear and echoes from the dim subconscious caves. These are the caves where the Vritras and Panis and Dasyus hide, which Vedic rishis speak of. So they respond, yes. Answers and tissue and nerve obey the call. Our lives translate these subtle intimacies. All is the commerce of a secret power. Actually, it brings a deep sense of compassion towards everybody. That look, human beings are helplessly caught in the net of these forces. All of us in one way or the other. We may blame this or that person for saying this or doing this or feeling this, but look, the person is caught in this net and one has to be free from this. So, Aurobindo describes our life as a thinking puppet is the mind of life. This highest peak of the little life is a mind which has emerged out of it but which is serving small aims. A thinking puppet is the mind of life. Its choice is the work of elemental strengths that know not their own birth and end and cause and glimpse not the immense intent they serve. Interesting. Even terrorists end up serving a great plan of God. Had they not been moved to act in such gory, foolish and ridiculous ways, I mean, one doesn't have words, we would not wake up to our true aims and to our own darknesses, to places where we are asleep. So here, Aurobindo is telling us, they know not their birth and end and cause, and glimpse not the immense intent they serve. In this nether life of man, drab, based and dull, yet filled with poignant, small, ignoble things, the conscious doll is pushed in 100 ways. We are the conscious doll, pushed in 100 ways. We think we are watching a television show. We are being watched upon and made a doll. All the excitement, the horror which is being thrown, these beings are around us and feeding on them. Conscious doll is pushed in 100 ways and feels the push, but not the hands that drive. We are pushed to do things despite ourselves. We do not see the hands that drive. For none can see the masked, ironic troupe to whom our figured selves are marionettes, our deeds unwitting movements in their grasp, our passionate strife and entertainment scene. They laugh at our expense. And we who want to be instruments of the divine force, the moment we try to say that, they make still worse chaos. Oh, you have been so far our instrument. We don't even realize. We think we just have to say, Mother, we want to be your instrument, and from next day, very beautiful things will begin to happen and we'll be moved to do great and mighty things. We have to clean this room because we are instruments of these forces. For none can see the masked, ironic truth, our deeds unwitting movements in their grasp, our passionate strife and entertainment scene, ignorant themselves of their own fount of strength, they play their part in the enormous whole. They have a role to play and they play that part. Life has to be destroyed and built 1,000 times till it has found itself. And that is why perhaps all these melodrama attracts human beings so much. All these serial killers, which attracts us simply because they give that there is a line in Aurobindo poem, A God's Labor. Only with passion and drama, only with passion and pleasure and pain, his drama can endure. Our drama, we feel very lost if we are told remain peaceful and quiet. These beings become restless. That's why we become restless if we remain too peaceful for too long a time. We can try this simple exercise, practicing not to speak, to remain quiet. After some time, these beings will start making us restless. After a while, we'll end up speaking, and then we'll speak and speak and speak, not knowing what we are speaking, because these are always there, wanting their share. Ignorant themselves of their own fount of strength, they play their part in the enormous whole, agents of darkness imitating light, spirits obscure and moving things obscure. Unwillingly they serve a mightier power. Anarchy's engines organizing chance. Channels perverse of a stupendous will, tools of the unknown, who use us as their tools. There is a purpose. Aurobindo will tell us later why this is allowed, but right now he is telling us even they have been allowed with a purpose. And one example is, Mother says that, many times when people take to inner life, how they start acting by feeling guilt. So she says, they are basically adverse forces. But in their origin, they are instruments of sincerity. But here they have become adverse forces. So they, you do one mistake and they'll tell you, oh, you want to do yoga? Come on, get back. Lead a normal, ordinary life. This is not for you. Then you say, no, divine grace is there. So they make us do the same stupidity 100,000 times. At some point, people give up. But on the contrary, Mother says, what is the way? Whenever I meet these gentlemen, they whisper suggestions in the mind. She says, I simply thank them because they show us what needs to be changed and then get past them. So never to get caught up in the maze of guilt, depression, sense of unworthiness, not fit. All these are ways they whisper, and yet as we see, they serve the purpose. What is the purpose? So that premature certitudes don't come to us. We know where we stand, that we have to work on this again and again. So they show us precisely the spot which is weak. And they will keep hammering that point till finally one day we look there and say, look, this can't I overcome this small weakness, this for food for instance. So one day they will hammer, and one day you say, okay, I am going to go on health foods. Enough is enough. Otherwise, you keep becoming a prey to a little thing like palate. So they keep hammering at one point. It can be any point. It can be jealousy, anger, and slowly they will work through them. So they serve a purpose. They are perfectionists of nature. It's like, when you make a big building and white ants spoil it. So no, all is not well. You have to do something to prevent it. So these entities come, or there is a very interesting advertisement that somebody goes inside a house and there is a party and everybody is spoiling the wall, either with the heel or something else, and this owner is getting really worked up. So finally he realizes that you can't stop people from doing it. What they are pointing is that the paint is not good. So I must put a paint which nothing can spoil. So the next image is that he has put a nice paint, and when people come, they cannot spoil it. So basically they come to point our own imperfections. And in that sense, they serve the tremendous plan and they don't give up. We may give up, but they don't give up. So we have to weed through them. Invested with power in nature's nether state, into the actions mortals think their own, they bring the incoherencies of fate. So we see a person who was very nice, going life the right way, everything was going very well. Suddenly something happens and the whole world collapses. The scene changes and one wonders, how can it happen in this person's life? Because it's incoherent. It doesn't go. Why? Because these are the agents who bring the incoherencies of fate. But they serve a purpose. That's why it's shown Ananke's instruments. They point out, they show, they lead. They don't allow happiness till we have found the true happiness. So this is the purpose they serve in the grand scheme. But to our view, it looks like incoherencies of fate, or make a doom of time slipshod caprice, and toss the lives of men from hand to hand in an inconsequent and devious game. Against all higher truth, their stuff rebels. And these incoherencies come more when we begin to aspire for something higher. So long as people are satisfied with a small and narrow life, their lives goes very nice, cozy, comfortable. Because they are happy. We are giving them their food. That's what they want. But the moment we turn to higher life, they start doing mischief. Because against all higher truth, their stuff rebels. Only to tighten force, their will lies prone. If you obey the titan impulse, the demonic, the usual life of greed and desire and ignorance, they are satisfied. But the moment you turn higher, they will start poking their nose in a wrong way. Inordinate their hold on human hearts, in all our nature's turns they intervene. Insignificant architects of low-built lives. We may live in big houses, but still we may have low-built lives. So we are denied happiness. Why? Because these beings are there. And engineers of interest and desire. What language with such a touch of humor. Thank God Shubinda has not used the word, and doctors of shame and guilt or some such thing. Doctors have been spared here. And engineers of interest and desire. Because engineers do that many times. You want something, you desire, and we will build. But many times it will lack that inner light, that inner beauty. So now we have this new concept of psychological space and creating like that. But well, earlier they were engineers of interest and desires. This is a fact. And engineers of interest and desire, out of crude earthiness and muddy thrills and coarse reactions of material nerve, they build our huddled structures of self-will and the ill-lighted mansions of our thought. What a beautiful description of the house we live in. We live in two houses simultaneously. One, the physical space. The other is the psychological house. And while we take so much care sometimes to build the physical space, because well, all that we need is to throw a little money, we don't care to build a psychological space. So if somebody was to take an image of the psychological space, he's saying dim lit, small, petty, we live in that. So even if we live in a castle, we are prey to that. Or with the ego's factories and marts, surround the beautiful temple of the soul. When we come out of not only Konark, it's of all the places, even Jagannath Puri and all, why Odisha is there in my head. Maybe the last temples I visited was that. But you see outside the temple, you see there is a little market where you'll have replicas and then prasad and all this. It's there in Mathura also, it's there in Vrindavan. And you have all these market crowded, thronged with all kinds of petty things. So Shobinda is giving us this image. And what is the image? You buy this, offer to the deity, your will be satisfied. So this is the image. We have surrounded the temple of the soul with ego's factories and mark. Our soul is surrounded by these clamorings of the ego and desire, because these beings are there. They don't want us to read. So, strangely, how is it that the mic is working? Yes, so, but we can't read unless somebody has a torch. I have to use my cell phone and switch it on. And yes, So, this is the image of our life that Sri Aurobindo paints. A thinking puppet is the mind of life. We were at the Ego's Factories and Marts. These are not some of the most beautiful lines, so I don't remember what comes later, and we should not jump to some other lines much further. If I just get a little bit this thing, maybe we can read it. Yes, thank you. There we are. So you see, always there is God's hand side by side. Surround the beautiful temple of the soul. Artists, minute of the hues of littleness, they set the mosaic of our comedy or plan the trivial tragedy of our days. In fact, there is very little difference if we really look at our life closely between success and failure. Sri Aurobindo says that one of the places our life successes are often failures of the soul. And what we regard as happy life full of comedy is nothing but a little life played out by them. So they plan this comedy or the tragedy, trivial tragedy of our days, arrange the deed, combine the circumstance and the fantasia of the moods, costume. All these are arranged by them. When we get into certain moods and states, these entities have planned it, and they look at the color and they enjoy. We become puppets. These unwise prompters of man's ignorant heart and tutors of his stumbling speech and will, movers of petty wraths and lusts and hates and changeful thoughts and shallow emotions starts. Mother one place says, my child, when you are feeling very distressed because something has happened, just know that this mood will also pass away. This is really so very true. These are small little beings and they cannot really, they enjoy these littleness, and that is how they pursue a life. Lust and hate and shallow emotion starts. These slight illusion makers with their masks, painters of the decor of a dull hued stage and nimble sheen sifters of the human play, ever are busy with this ill-lit scene, ourselves incapable to build our fate, only as actors speak and strut our parts until the piece is done and we pass off into a brighter time and subtler space. Thus they inflict their little pygmy law and curb the mounting slow uprise of man. Then his too scanty walk with death they close. So this is the ephemeral creature's daily life. All our life, as someone has beautifully in a small story summarized, that a king, see, they give up very soon, so we should not, I'll give it back, keep it just in case. So, a king asks someone to write a history of the world, and this man comes back with huge volumes of many pages, thousands pages, 50 volumes, 10 on each donkey. 5 donkeys walk into the court. After 15 years, this man writes history of the world. So the king says, now my eyesight is falling weak. Can you summarize it? So he comes back after another 5 years. 2 donkeys, 5 volumes each. So the king says, another 5 years have passed. I am burdened with diabetes, hypertension, all these things. Can you still make it little more shorter? So the minister says, 20 years I have spent on this. Now I know what to write. Tomorrow I'll give you the history of man, history of the world. So the king says, oh, so quick. He says, I can actually give you now itself. What is it? He says, after reading all the history of the world, I have realized one thing. It can be summarized in 3 short sentences. Men were born, men lived, men died. This is what I have. This is the kind of ephemeral creature's daily life. Of course, this is not true because something is done through all this. But our average life is like this. And we hang the photos of those who have gone as if they did some great deed for world and take great pride in our surnames, our parentage. It's amazing to what extent human nature can go. This is the ephemeral creature's daily life as long as the human animal is Lord. So, as long as a greater intelligence is not born in us, as long as the light of the soul does not come out, as long as the spirit in us is not free, as long as we have not reached that point where the hand of grace steps in and holds a little finger, as long as the human animal is Lord and a dense nether nature screens the soul, as long as intellect's outward gazing sight serves earthly interest and creature joys, an incurable littleness pursues his days. We are not suffering from swine flu. We are suffering from an incurable littleness. And this is everywhere. We can't put a mask and save ourselves. This is the problem. It doesn't matter what happens outside, but this is the incurable littleness. Why incurable? As long as intellect's outward gazing sight serves earthly interest and creature joys. As long as our mind is only busy plotting and planning the little drama of life. In the Gita it is described in very beautiful ways. Sampada, and he says Sampada, you don't worry. Then he speaks of Asuri Sampada. There he describes thoughts. What are the thoughts of the Asura in us? Today I have slain this enemy, tomorrow I shall slay another. Today I have achieved this desire, tomorrow I shall achieve this more. I shall enjoy, I shall give, I shall reign. This is the mind is going on. This much I have enjoyed, this much I will enjoy tomorrow. Today I am only this rank, tomorrow my rank will increase more. I will be promoted to greater and greater rank. Today I am having this much money, tomorrow my wealth will increase. I will enjoy, I will give. Aurobindo even uses the word I will give. The Asura takes joy in giving. But this giving is out of ostentatious show. So there, Aurobindo is telling us, serves earthly interest and creature joys. He has summarized it. As long as that's all that we need and want. Grown and become very wise. But so long as our wisdom is used only for little ends, this is the result. Its tough unchanged, its way the common route. If new designs, if richer details grow, and thought is added and more tangled cares, if little by little it wears a brighter face, still even in man, the plot is mean and poor. So even when we cover it and color it with gloss and design, even when we advertise beautiful things and make it look very nice, still, if we go into the heart of the creature's daily life, he is still occupied only with the smallness and littleness. So Aurobindo says that the plot is mean and poor. That's what we read earlier. Wherever there are soulless mind and guideless lives, wherever this is the way we live, a gross content prolongs his fallen state. What a marvel of a line. Gross content. We can almost rephrase it as content with grossness. As long as all that we need is food and more food and a roof above our head, which some politicians will make us believe that man needs only this and nothing more. And as long as that's all that we are interested in, a gross content prolongs his fallen state. His small successes are failures of the soul. Things with which we are very happy that I had such a wonderful life. God has been very kind to me. First of all, I could get a chance to study in MIT and then got a wonderful job in New York, and then my children, they are all very well settled. One is in London, the second one is in Paris. Both of them are very well settled. Very well settled means they are very rich. And their children are also now studying in this school. And now he has recently bought a Mercedes Benz. Aurobindo is telling us, a gross content prolongs his fallen state. His small successes are failures of the soul. Because what we don't add is that in the debris of all this success, somewhere his soul is stifled. That's why when God loves us, He pulls away these things from us and shows us the escape door through failure and fall. His little pleasures punctuate frequent griefs. In fact, grief is a relief. Mother says, my child, pleasure is far more deceptive than pain. When there is pain and grief, at least human beings look for some door. But when all is going well, when there is pleasure, all is going well not in the deeper sense, but when there is only things of pleasure are provided to us, we should look a little more carefully and ask God, have you really forgotten us by any chance? So, Aurobindo is telling us his little pleasures punctuate frequent griefs. Hardship and toil are the heavy price he pays for the right to live, and his last wages death. And this is what we are happy with. It's strange that even now, if the amount we labor in ordinary life, the amount we suffer through the process, if we were really to put in 1/10 of that labor, or maybe just a little bit of that, we would be far, far ahead in our inner journey. Often people come to spiritual life and they expect that within just a couple of years they would realize their soul, etc., etc. And a very simple logic is that just to complete a graduation, which means really nothing in today's times, one spends almost 21 years, 22 years. If one were to spend just half the number of years in pursuit of a deeper life, one would be so much happier, so much richer, and so much more beautiful. So we end with these last 6-7 lines, which summarize this. Yeah, we have another 5 minutes. We'll end with these. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy given to him to grow and be. Television and all the stuff to which we fall prey. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy given to him to grow and be. His little hour is spent in little things. A brief companionship which with many jars, a little love and jealousy and hate, a touch of friendship mid indifferent crowds, draw his heart plan on life's diminutive map of if something great awakes, too frail his pitch to reveal its zenith tension of delight, his thought to eternize its ephemeral soar. This what our life is, that generally it is spent on these little things. And even if something great awakes, we cannot bear the tension of that delight for too long. We once again crave for the small joys, even for the small griefs, for the small touches. Art's brilliant gleam is a pastime for his eyes, a thrill that smites the nerves is music's spell. I think we'll pause here and continue tomorrow. The Godheads of the little life.